Okay, hello. Before I get started, I want to ask a couple of questions. Raise your hand if you are a business owner. Okay. We're here to talk about exports today and building exports. So raise your hand if you've already been doing exports for, say, more than 3 years. And raise your hand if you're new at exports within the last year or 2 years, or just getting started. Okay, good. One more question as we're talking about culture today that I want to ask is, how many of you deal with somebody from another culture from another country from an almost daily basis? Raise your hands. It's almost everybody, right? So all the expertise is already here in the room. You don't really need to listen to me. Just talk to each other. But maybe I can give you something to talk about. All right? One of the things, I want to take a step back for a second and talk about your business in general, and maybe something about a competitive advantage. Where is it in your company that you get a competitive advantage? Some people will say in their quality, some people will say in their price, some customer responsiveness, different unique features for customers, all of those things. Now, those are all important things, but they're not all quite right. Those things may give you a competitive advantage, but they're an outcome. They're a result of something that you've done in the company. And what is it that you've done, that management does in the company, that gives the company a competitive advantage, that it results in some of these outcomes? And it has to do with the environment you work in. Right? Now, I think nobody would be surprised if I say that the environment that you work in is changing all of the time. Right? You deal with change every day. Okay? That's why, as some of you as business owners, you can't just walk away and let your business run by itself. One, maybe you like working in it, but another reason is that things change every day. Customer needs change, competition changes, everything changes. And what's the result of that change? What happens when something changes? Right? We get a change. If nothing ever changed, everything would be fine. But something changes, and now we got a different situation. You got a problem you have to deal with. Right? But your problem is actually somebody else's opportunity. Right? So change, when something changes, it causes both problems and opportunities. And what's management's job? Management's job is to deal with the problems and opportunities that are caused by change. Solve problems and deal with opportunities. Right? This is the job of management. This is what management does. And here is where you can find a real competitive advantage. Think about it. The company that can most quickly identify the problems and opportunities caused by change and deal with them are the ones that move ahead the fastest. Right? This is just Darwin 101. It's not the strongest, it's not the smartest, it's the most adaptable to change. That's the one that's going to move ahead. Right? Now, as managers, and dealing with management, what happens when you solve a problem and you implement your change? Watch this. What happens? You create more change. Right? Which means then you create more problems, which then you have to deal with. And the loop goes on and on. This is the change loop. Right? This is life. Okay? So the better you are at solving problems, the more problems you create. And as you go through this loop, what happens? The problems get bigger, more complex, more difficult to deal with. Right? Maybe this is a reason that managers have a lower life expectancy than some other occupations. Right? But this is the change loop. Okay? Now, going into exports, we're supposed to talk about culture. So what does this have to do with that? one of the big changes you face as you go into export is dealing with different cultures. Right? And so that's what I want to spend a few minutes talking about now. And I want to start with a story. Okay? A friend of mine, Chinese Malaysian that lives here in Latvia, his name's Khan. Right? Because he's Chinese, he was asked to go with Latvian business delegation to China and act as an interpreter. So, you know, the delegation goes to China. The first evening they're there, the Chinese have a big banquet for them. Really nice time. And at the end of the banquet, later on in the evening, some of the Chinese people pulled Khan aside. And they were visibly upset. Okay? Now, how many of you, raise your hand if you do business with China? Anybody? Right? Not really. Or any of the Far Eastern countries. But in China, right, exchanging business cards is really a formal thing. You get it, you're supposed to take it in two hands, you look at it and make some comment about, oh, you work in this area, or some kind of comment. Right? You show a lot of respect that way. Now, what about when you meet Chinese people? They shake hands. Right? Their handshake is very soft. Right? How do Latvians shake hands? Right? They grab your hands and squeeze it. And I mean, I'm an American, and it hurts. I can handle the women, but the men, and they have a strong grip. Okay? And so these Chinese were visibly upset. And Khan said, well, what's the matter? Why are you upset? And they said, well, we think they're mad at us. The Latvians are mad at us. And he said, well, why? And he said, because they came in and they started throwing their business cards at us. And then they shook our hands and they just hurt us. Right? What's going on here? Right? What is going on? I mean, certainly it's different cultures, but what exactly is it that is so different? And what it is the Latvians had broken the rules. Right? A culture is nothing more than a set of rules. And we have rules for absolutely everything. We have rules for how we shake hands. Right? In China, it's very soft. Here, it's much stronger grip. It's even stronger than in the U.S., right? If Roland's was just here, if I meet Roland's and I'm shaking his hand, in the U.S., it's like 1, 2, 3 shakes and you let go. It's about the same here. Wonder if I'm shaking his hand and then I don't let go and just hold it. And he starts thinking, Greg, you're a little too friendly. Right? So we have rules for that. If you're driving down the street in your car and it's raining outside and you see somebody standing at the bus stop with a bright red umbrella. Is it a man or a woman? Typically it's a woman. Why? What color umbrellas do men carry? Dark blue, dark green, black. Okay? An unspoken rule. And if you carry a different color umbrella, you stand out. Okay? Which maybe that's a good thing. Okay? Walking. Right? Walking's another thing. Do you walk faster in the countryside or in the city? I was in Hawaii visiting my nephew, right? Left Latvia, went to Hawaii. When you're on vacation, you also tend to walk a little bit slower. But in Hawaii, he lived about 3 blocks from the beach. And so we would walk to the beach, and we're walking, and about every 20 meters, we have to stop and wait for him. Because in Hawaii, they're on island time, right? And they just kind of walk. It takes them forever to do anything. Okay? Different cultures. They have different rules for how they do things. I have a nice Russian lady who's a friend of mine, and when I first met her, it was kind of uncomfortable because what she would do is she would come up and she'd stand right here and talk to me. Right? And I'm standing like this, and as an American, right, I need space. I need a lot of space, and she's in my space talking to me right here. And so she's talking to me, and I'm kind of looking around uncomfortable, and I back up, and then she moves closer, and she moves closer. And pretty soon I see a friend of mine over here, so I grab him, and I say, oh, you got to meet this guy, and put him in the middle, and now we can talk to each other. Okay? So there's rules for absolutely everything. What's the rule for returning an email in Latvia? Same day, 1 day, 2 days? How many of you have to write emails to somebody in southern Italy? And how long does it take to get a response? Okay? If you get one. All right? They have different rules. So what does all of this mean? What does it mean? Does it mean that we have to just go around and understand everybody's rules and deal with those? I think what it means is that when you're dealing with somebody from another culture and you're feeling uncomfortable, the first thing to realize is that the reason why may be that they're just breaking one of your rules. Right? They're breaking your rules about some type of how you interact. So does that mean that we just need to be compliant of everybody else's rules and accept them? I don't think so. I think what it means is that when we establish relationships, what we need to do is set the ground rules. We need to build agreement on how are we going to answer emails, when are we going to return phone calls, who's going to write contracts and things like this, so that we build agreement on how this relationship's going to go, so that we don't break our rules, they don't break our rules, and we don't break their rules. We come up with a shared set of rules that we can agree on. Right? And you all do this to some extent already, but really you should think about this. Right? Because this, if you think about it, right, back to this model, change causing problems that we have to deal with. One of the big changes that you're going to face is going and dealing with these other cultures and people in these cultures. But you're not the only one going to be dealing with these potential customers. There's other people as well, from other countries, trying to get in there as well. So the problem that exists is how to deal with this different culture. And the one that can figure it out the quickest and build that relationship is the one that's going to move ahead. Thank you very much.
Paldies.